Hello, my woowa peeps. Now, sorry for being on ZZZ. I've kind of been trying to get back into it because I saw a certain character get dripped. And, yeah, but I will be talking about Qiuyuan and Galbraina here. You guys remember I made a video talking about how underwhelming the both of them were. Galbraina was basically a side grade to Chang-Li at max at the time, and in any other team, she was basically weaker than every version 2 main DPS. And then Qiuyuan wasn't even best in slot for Galbraina or for Prolova. He was really just a third option after Roshia and SK aren't available to you, I guess, and that didn't really give him all that great of value. However, things have changed, right? Of course, beta. And so one of the major things that changed is that Qiuyuan now gives enemies vulnerability instead of giving himself amp for a few of his attacks. Now this buff isn't as crazy as the buff for Galbrena that I'll get into a little bit, and even though it does buff his damage, his main DPS capability, it is still going to be behind the likes of Yuno and a lot of main DPS characters in version 2. I'd say for the average player, he may be like version 1 main DPS level, kinda there in his best in slot team, if you're not really someone who has fast hands, right? Very good mechanical gameplay. So keep that in mind. Qiuyuan main DPS is still a bit cope, right? It's not really something worth pulling on meta-wise. However, his value as a sub DPS has slightly become better, I believe, right? Now, for Prolova specifically, they didn't really go back on their word or like what they originally did. Basically, I believe they made Qiuyuan some of his buffs not actually last as long as they used to when he's off field, and so that was kind of the nerf to the Prolova team a little bit that led to him going from like definitive best in slot to you could use Roshia and SK still. However, for Galbreina's team, his value increased. The reason for this is he isn't the only one who got a wording change for putting vulnerability on enemies for certain attacks. Galbraina actually benefited the most from these wording changes, and I believe in her Qiuyuan team specifically, she gained like 200k more damage. And so this matters because in Mono Fusion, it's like everybody kind of does damage, right? A big part of Mono Fusion damage with Galbraina was Brant, and Brant can get very solid damage off near the same level as Galbraina. It's kind of like a dual DPS type of thing. However, because of this buff, Qiuyuan's stronger single target buffs towards Galbraina end up actually coming out on top and improving his value much more. So he is definitive best in slot with Galbraina alongside SK, and it is a pretty strong team. Now, as far as I know so far, it isn't like Augusta Yuno level. However, I think it's close enough and people can still justify pulling for it at the end of the day. I also don't think personally that Galbraina is going to be that difficult of a character for average players to use. So the DPS or the DPR that you see on these types of calcs and shit out there, they should be pretty accurate to what most people can achieve, so long as they aren't completely brainless. So yeah, those are the changes. Qiuyuan is now actually best in slot for a character, technically best in slot for Prolova as well, but barely, and Galbraina got her damage buffed a little bit to now be on the same level as, let's say, Augusta, maybe slightly weaker, but who really cares, right? So personally, I'm very happy with these changes. A lot of people said I was advocating for power creep. However, as you can see, these changes didn't lead to any power creep at all. Yet, I am actually decently satisfied with this. Now, of course, the mains of these characters will obviously have more biased opinions and wish they could have gotten more. I won't deny that. I think Qiuyuan main DPS with the animations he has would have been super cool if it was like actually meta. However, I think they are in a good spot. Qiuyuan is really, really good and best in slot for two of the strongest characters in the game, right? Not literally, but you get what I'm saying. Like top 5, he's good for Prolova. He's also good as well for Galbrena. And Galbrena is in a good enough damage spot to where you can justify pulling her. I know it's near the end of the version. If Wuwa keeps, their old track record, we will get power creep probably in 2.8 or 3.0, somewhere around there. However, I still can appreciate this damage, and I doubt that the power creep we get in the new version will just suddenly make Galbraina obsolete. This also doesn't include the fact that some of these version 2 teams and DPSs could end up getting a buff in the future through new teammates releasing in version 3. So I think, you know what, it's all good. Great changes. Both of these characters actually have value now, and I'd say go ahead and pull them. Right. Love you all. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great night. Peace out.